All right. Good evening to those of you on the East Coast. Good afternoon to those of you on the West Coast. I'm your host, Brandon Troy, host and co-creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited, and I am joined by
Co-founder, co-creator Jerome Bourgeois from Movers Shakers Unlimited. How's everything going, man? Enjoying
going well.
this hot weather and these storms? It's like every day, it's like
I
hot weather and
am,
storm.
but knock on wood, knock on wood. The weather has been pretty decent today. It hasn't been too hot. You had a nice breeze going today, so can't complain. Versus yesterday, where it was kind of just as you said, having thunderstorms and unbearable heat. But it is to be expected here here in our in July. And likely will continue on until August. We normally have pretty hot Julys and hot Augusts. And I won't have the reprieve of what we will get into, what I normally get into in July, which we'll have in our first story. But before I do that, as you guys well know, every Saturday we have this show known as This Week in Review. We're doing a little later than expected. We had some things that were happening, a little earlier today that changed, the schedule, but just know that this is, an anomaly. Typically, we like to, get things started in earlier in the morning. But as I said, this week, we're doing it in the evening. Before we get into some of the stories that we wanted to discuss, some of the news bits that made them rounds in entertainment, I just want to give a couple of quick reminders for you guys, some minutes, if you will. Just remember that even though you are watching this show live, perhaps you may come across us later at some other point. You see it as an archive episode. Make sure that you are using that hashtag This Week in Review. So that's TWNRMNSU. So This Week in Review, Movers and Shakers Unlimited. And as I said, that's, just to stay a wind of the conversation that may be happening with this series that we do each Saturday, going into the entertainment bits. And then also make sure, if you enjoy many of our videos, a lot of our content, that you become a Patreon supporter. So we have that link just down below, as you can see. So patreon.com, Movers Shakers Unlimited. And we have some cool perks that we have or I should say that we have available for those that become supporters with us. So be sure to check it out, because as I said, we have some nice perks where not only do we, give out shout outs, but, we have other things available in terms of events that we cover. So this is definitely something to look into if you want to, see the goings on here at Movers and Shakers Unlimited. In addition to, perhaps what you just see posted. So again, be sure to check that out. With that being said, I want to be able to hop right into the stories. As I said, you were, just covering it just now, Jerome, and talking about the weather. And I have been known to discuss, what my typical July looks. And one major component of July for me each summer is going to San Diego Comic-Con. However, we know this year it was already shared by Comic-Con that we will not be having an in-person event. At least we won't be having an in-person event in the month of July. Apparently, there will be an in-person event happening in November. So from what I understand, it will be during that Thanksgiving Friday, or that Black Friday, if you will. But to talk
Black
further
Friday
on,
prices.
right. So to talk further on that story, apparently, and this is an exclusive from Deadline, in lieu of us having another edition of Comic-Con at home, we will not see an appearance by Marvel Studios or by WBDC. So WBDC being, those DC related film projects that are, made by Warner Brothers. So your Justice Leagues, your Batmans, things of that nature. So you hear this story, Jerome, and, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, and also I just want to thank everyone for tuning in. This is our 21st episode, so we're going strong. Yeah, it's funny. It's because I think we were kind of talking about this recently, or actually, I was looking at an episode from, I think we had on like Comic-Con. goer, crew, Comic-Con fam. And I was like, man, I should have been on it. We got to do another episode like just on that. I'm going to be on it. I want to talk about my experience. You're all talking about me too. So I like that.
Yeah.
With Sam on there, but it's crazy because those are like the two big companies that I always anticipate seeing when I'm at Comic-Con. But I'm not surprised because it's not really a full Comic-Con this year. I don't know what they're going to do in November. Maybe it'll be somewhat like what happens in summer, but on their part, it makes sense because with these last two virtual Comic-Cons, it just made sense for them to, pretty much they release a lot of their new information with their shareholder meetings or whatever. Like, I know Disney was doing that, or like Warner Brothers was doing that with they had their own fandom, virtual fandom event. So I'm not really surprised about that, even though it would be interesting if there is some sort of surprise they have in November. That'd be cool. But I feel like if they're going to mention something or going to be at a Comic-Con event, they probably want to take full advantage of, all those people there in Hall H. That's always what I'm looking forward to. But it's not as surprising. It does beg the question though, who's going to be there in November? And that'll be interesting to see.
For sure.
But I'm just looking forward to hopefully they'll be there next year when we can go to Comic-Con for real. So,
right.
But it's not really surprising.
Yeah, for sure. I guess for me, the thing that is not really surprising about it is just the fact that we have so many other events out there that have developed out of the fact that we are all at least for the last year and a half during that time we're confined to our homes or I guess confined is not necessarily the right word, but just the fact that we were, staying in our homes and we were, because of, social distancing, many of the things that we take for granted or took for granted, we weren't able to do live in person. So, we had Comic-Con at home, and we had DC fandom as well. Yeah. So we saw a lot of events that were doing a lot of niche cons that were virtual, and some of them actually turned out to be pretty pretty unique and interesting. As I say, we had DC fandom, but I would argue even some of our smaller cons. If you guys didn't see the video that we had regarding Farpoint Con, which is one of the smaller cons that we have here in the East Coast, that's geared centered around Star Trek, but it goes into other fandoms as well, in science fiction and fantasy. They did a virtual one where they used I want to say the name of the platform is GatherTown. I feel like that's the name of the platform. I'll look it up as we go into the next story to confirm, but it was pretty cool because the way that they did it, they had it as if, and I think I told you this, they had it as like a 16 or 32-bit like RPG style game.
Yeah, I saw
where you actually could go. Yeah, so you can actually go through the actual venue space that you would normally walk through in person live. They had it in that type of style, and you could still access all the programming that you normally would. All the programming like panels and things like that were all Zoom videos, but you accessed it through that GatherTown RPG initial platform. So you could have an avatar, you could walk around in a lot of the spaces, you could walk to like the panel room per se, for example, and you could click on the link that would take you to the actual virtual panel, or you could go to the room where they normally have a lot of their parties, and you could actually interact with other avatars as well. So there were a lot of events that found creative ways to navigate around the fact that they couldn't meet in person, and some of the results were actually pretty cool and pretty awesome. So it'll be interesting now that things are starting to return to normal. If some of those things may continue to go forward. And speaking of Comic-Con at home, and you talking about SDCC peeps, we are going to have a sequel edition of SDCC peeps, folks. So be on the lookout for that. I will be announcing that soon. We will have a lot of folks from that prior year just to check back in, of course, and see how, the last year has been. And, perhaps what their plans are, with this upcoming show. Because as I said, we have this virtual edition, but we also are going to have that. We're having that November show coming up as well. And it's going to be fascinating in that I think this will be the first year that I've ever attended Comic-Con that it wasn't nearly a week long, where I think it's, instead of it being Wednesday to Sunday, both editions of those shows, whether it's the one that we're getting in July or the one that's happening in November, or at least as it stands now happening in November, with all the other stuff that's happening out in our world right now that, that may potentially change at the last minute, but at least on paper as it stands now will happen. This will be the first time that we've, at least for me, that I've attended that the show has been Friday to Sunday. So, how is that going to look like, and how is that going to determine for Comic-Con what programming they decide to keep, and which ones, even outside of these two, folks that have slates, which ones they decide to keep and what things they decide to cut from their normal slate, because some things are going to have to end up on the editing floor, but if they only have 3 days of content that they're able to do versus spreading it out amongst 5 days. So so with that being said, I want to switch gears into the small screen and talking about a story centered around Misha Green. And if you recall, Misha Green is the creator of the recently announced show that we unfortunately will not get season 2 of, the HBO critically acclaimed HBO series Lovecraft Country. So apparently she has a deal with Apple TV Plus. So Jerome, if you want to take it from here, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I thought this article was interesting because it's weird, like with the timing of everything, with obviously Lovecraft Country being canceled, but she has this deal with Apple TV Plus. So, I mean, it's kind of like a bittersweet type of situation, but, I'm anxious to see what type of stuff she's going to, bring to Apple TV Plus, if it's series, maybe it's another series, or maybe some feature films, or we'll see. But it just shows it's like, nothing is really, really over until, even if some project that you might have or you develop might have been canceled, whatever, the proof of concept and the critical acclaim and people just liking what you're doing. And also we'll see what happens with the Emmys. I mean, if she wins some Emmys too, that'll definitely increase her profile. But yeah, someone else is going to want you, and it's going to want to offer you some sort of, development deal. So I think that's great for her that she has, she's going to be developing projects for Apple TV Plus. I mean, they definitely need more. I think that's one of the issues with Apple TV Plus. They have good content, but they just don't have as much compared to like Netflix or, Disney Plus, or I guess you could even say HBO Max. But they're trying to ramp up. So yeah, I mean, I would assume they probably would make some. They're probably going to make some other deals with other big players too, or emerging talent that's just making a name, or just making a name for themselves with like an established brand that they're just that's just like getting that type of critical acclaim and support from the fans. But yeah, I mean, it's a bummer that show got canceled, but I mean, I'm sure she has some other good ideas, so we'll have to see what else is out there.
And I was going to say, and we were talking about this briefly off stage, but I think the thing that is most fascinating about this story is, just as it's saying in the story, it states that this has happened, or I should say it happened just days after, it was announced about Lovecraft Country. And it begs the question of if she's being provided the ability to bring new content and new projects to Apple TV Plus, if she wanted to, and I mean, we'll see. Like I'll look into it more to see if this maybe is an exclusive deal, or maybe there's some clause where she has to refrain from doing anything in that world. But
To a second
based
season,
on if she wanted to, she could bring Lovecraft Country over to Apple TV Plus.
Maybe, yeah.
And I mean, perhaps there is some clause, like I said, that I'm just not
Depends on
privy
the
to.
deal.
Yeah,
Depends
that's
on
what I'm
the deal.
saying.
Yeah.
Perhaps there's just some clause that I'm not privy to, where she, in fact, has to like hold off from what she's able to provide in the world of Lovecraft Country or anything regarding that. Maybe it's like a couple of years, because I know like with Marvel, for example, that's why we didn't get any of those. What is it? The Netflix characters for quite some time, when they weren't able to go any further with them, is because there was a clause.
Was a licensing deal. Yeah, I mean, that was a licensing deal, so obviously Netflix wants to maximize.
But even if that's the case, just the idea that they couldn't do anything with those characters for a couple of years. It could be the same case, as I said, with Lovecraft Country, but if not, sky's the limit. If she really wanted to and had her druthers, she could just say, okay, fine. Like, I'm not going to be on HBO. Fine. I'll just bring it over to Apple TV Plus.
You got to look at, there's two examples that recently happened. Remember Cobra Kai was on YouTube Red, and it's on Netflix, and then they continued. And then remember Designated Survivor? Like, I'm glad they brought that back for the third season. And they were cursing and everything because it's on Netflix. They're able to. I mean, that doesn't mean everything, but I was like, oh, I love that show. So hopefully, I mean, it's possible. It's just to be interesting, because I would have to see. It'd be interesting just to see what that gap was or what the timing was, because I'm sure it's probably something similar to that. But who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe.
Who knows? But fingers crossed.
That'll be good for Apple.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, it's not like they really have, based on, and I'm not going to get into crazy spoilers, but based on how the story concludes, they don't really have to worry about what they're going to do with the cast. That's all I'll say. So they could continue it forward logically with how it ended and pick up right where they left off, without it really not making sense. So, but with that being said, talking further about the world of TV, apparently another story that is close to you, Jerome. So what we have with Robert and Michelle King, they're renewing their deal with CBS Studios. So you want to talk further on that? I know you watch many of the shows that they provide for us.
Yeah, I thought this was great. I mean, I'm glad that they got their extension. It shows how much how important they are to CBS Studios, or now Paramount Plus. I mean, they created The Good Wife, and then the spinoff, The Good Fight, and it's also a testament to CBS Studios making a good decision to get into the streaming game, because I remember when The Good Fight came out, they only had it released on CBS Studios, so you had to pay. You had to pay to watch it. And I know some people, there was a debate. They're like, oh man, The Good Wife was on network television for free, and now I got to pay for the spinoff show. I mean, even though the show is great and they could take certain liberties, because obviously it's streaming, it's not network TV, so they can cuss or whatever, show whatever. Yeah, I mean, they're on their 5th season. I mean, that show is amazing. And they're still, I mean, obviously CBS Studios / Paramount Plus, they want to retain their talent and retain their ideas and what the projects they develop. So it's smart, because I mean, we're seeing, like I said, I know there's another story about well, I mean, we're thinking of talking about, like, with Shonda Rhimes extending her deal at Netflix, and when you have someone like Netflix getting all these big showrunners like Shonda Rhimes or Ryan Murphy or whoever, and then you see all the other networks really try to retain their talent. I mean, I know the CW, they really had to renew their deal with Greg Berlanti, because I mean, he's like their life and blood. He's their life and blood of that network. If he left, I mean, I don't know what they would do. So it's the same thing. I mean, of course, CBS Studios has other shows on there, but I mean, The Good Wife I know it's won Enemies, and it was around for like 7 seasons, and now Good Fight's on for 5 seasons, and it shows people like these types of shows, and they have good ideas. I mean, they've also written. I mean, I think Robert King, I know he's written some films, even feature films before, and that show came out. So it just shows, I think he did, was it Red Corner and what is it? I think it was Vertical Limit. That was like another one, but whatever. The whole idea is like, man, if you're like killing it on in one area, and you're like a staple for that network or that company, like it'd be smart for them to retain you. Oh yeah, another example is Issa Rae, HBO. Like she probably could have gone somewhere else, but she renewed her deal, and she has a few shows coming out on HBO Max, because I mean Insecure did really well, and that's about to end. So yeah, I just thought it was a good story, because they're a good team, and they're really great writers, and that their shows have lasted.
They have been
and they got a really good deal. I mean, again, like 8 figures, close to 9-figure deal.
I was just about to get into
that's the value. So, that's the value.
They have been with CBS since 2009. And just as you said, the interesting part of what they state here in the story, and I'll highlight it here, is it's not a run-of-the-mill like deal. Apparently, it's something, just as you said, it's going to be the deal is going to be in the high 8 figures, and highlighted here, but it has a potential of going into 9 figures. So that is, I mean, good for them that that they have been providing shows for CBS, and they're being compensated for the impact that they have had in assisting that CBS and everything that they've done. I mean, there's a quote here. Let me see if I can find it. That was interesting. So here we go. So and it speaks to the that renewal. Robert and Michelle represent an elite class of producers who consistently deliver, just as you said, intelligent, provocative, and acclaimed series across all platforms. But I wanted to get into what CBS had to say as to the reasoning behind. Here we go. This is what I wanted to get into. So Michelle and Robert have been integral to our success as a studio for more than a decade. We are continually bowled over by their ability to invent new forms of storytelling and their uncanny knack for being prescient and relatable while holding a mirror up to culture, said the president of CBS Studios. So their series have all been landmark genre-busting shows, widely recognized among television's best. They are simply extraordinary, and we are proud and honored to be continuing our partnership. So, just that idea that, you have, just as you said, you have these figures that have, been by your side, essentially, since 2009, and are providing, all this content to you, and that you're willing to put, your money where your mouth is, and compensate them accordingly, because, they have been, it's not something where we're seeing someone has, maybe it's providing that based on perhaps potential, because we see that sometimes where there's a potential where it can really develop into something special. They have been there since 2009, so they've demonstratrated that they are able to provide that content, and good for them that it's starting to pay off. Not to say don't cry.
No, I'm sure they've been getting paid, but
right. I say, don't cry, I'm a river god.
But it just shows the value. It shows that their work is being valued, and instead of because this is what's been happening. Like some of these showrunners. I mean, everyone knows that the infamous Shonda Rhimes story. I mean, you guys can look it up, but I heard there had something to do with like not getting a theme park ticket. That was one of the reasons, and she bounced and went to Netflix. And it's like, I mean, I don't know all the details to her situation, but I mean, that got out in the press. And I mean, I don't know what's with Ryan Murphy. I mean, a lot of times it's money. And then even what's his name, Kenya Barris, even though he kind of, I think, he left Netflix now, at least with his current deal. But I mean, usually money talks, and if money doesn't talk, if it's not just about money, then it has to be about the relationship too, and what they let you do. And it's like, I think it's commendable that these the networks they're realizing that, and they're trying to retain their talent, because I mean, everyone could just go to Netflix or Apple if they wanted to, because they could just keep shelling, or Amazon,
or
just
Hulu,
keep shelling out cash. I mean,
or
they have the
Hulu.
money to just buy these people, but it doesn't mean you're gonna have this. Maybe it doesn't always mean you're gonna have that same experience, maybe, or the same experience with the network or the executives, or maybe you might not have they might not want you to exactly make certain projects, but sometimes they give you that freedom. So it really depends on the deal. But I think it's interesting seeing these deals occur, and it makes sense that they would keep going, because you should take care of your people,
For sure, for sure. So on a a more somber note, over this week we did have the passing of a iconic
legendary director, man, one of the
filmer
best.
director, Richard Donner passes away at 91. So for Richard Donner, for those of you, unless you've been living under a rock, you probably have seen many of the films, even if you're not like a major movie buff like Jerome and myself. You probably enjoy a great deal of his films, whether it's the films known as Lethal Weapon, that franchise,
Yep.
the Goonies, gosh,
Superman.
like Superman. I mean, where would the MCU be? Where would any of our superhero films be without that Christopher Reeve Superman? That if you talk to any of the folks that are behind many of the superhero films that we know and love, whether it's from the house of DC, whether it's from the house of Marvel. I know we were just talking about Warner Brothers DC, and we were talking about MCU, Marvel Studios.
Yeah.
Talk to Kevin Feige. Kevin Feige being the big the major producer, the president of Marvel Studios. Talk to any of like the filmmakers that have done many of those superhero films. Sam Raimi comes to mind. He did the Spider-Man franchise back in the early 2000s. He'll be back in the MCU with Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Zack Snyder, like any of them, they will tell you how much Superman played, inspired them and played a role, in their enjoyment of film, and especially like superheroes. And
at that time too, like there weren't
that time,
like,
exactly.
Like it was like laughable, like no one, just getting that done. I mean,
so where would we be, without many of those films?
Yeah,
and then, like I said,
Lethal
Weapon, like,
oh man,
this the
he invented the action buddy. Like there was some before, but they can't. I'm sorry, no action buddy franchise can touch that. Like he did it right. They did it right.
So many buddy franchises get
none of them can touch that. There's no other one that can touch that.
To Lethal Weapon. So that and like I said, the Goonies too. Like Stranger Things. Where will we be with Stranger Things if it weren't for the Goonies? So
and Assassins, man. Assassins was written by the Wachowskis. So I mean, that was probably Joel Silver helping to find it, but like he directed like the first movie that they wrote. Or like,
and I was gonna say The Omen. The Omen guys, like, from the back from the 70s. I'm a huge horror guy. Those of you know that I'm a huge horror guy. I love the movie The Omen. It still holds up to this day. I mean, there are very few films that I feel like hold up, especially horror films, because sometimes, the effects get kind of dated. But like The Omen is in there, The Thing is in there. But yeah, like that is a film that still holds to this day. And I still can watch it like when it's like Halloween, like that movie, and even it's the only one that is a sequel. Those two films, Omen and Omen 2.
Excuse me.
And it's still also, like super creepy. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, conspiracy theory. I love that. I thought that was pretty good. I liked, like I said, Assassins. That was, to me, that's like one of Stallone's better action movies. And Antonio Banderas. He did Maverick. I mean, I thought that was a fun movie. I mean, I didn't know, because I was looking at his resume. Like Richard Donner, he directed a lot of TV before he started doing movies. So I think that mentality also helped him because as a director, because if you watch any commentary, a lot of actors, there's a few actors or other filmmakers, or they'll be like, they're like, he's one of the few directors that like, he like edits while he films. So he knows exactly, he's one of the few that really knows he really knows how to shoot that way. So he makes sure he gets all the coverage, everything, and he's quick like that. And also, I'm sure that came from, like, if you're a really good TV director, you can shoot. I mean, you're shooting you have a really short schedule, so you got to shoot fast and you can't waste time. So by the time you do a movie, you're like, oh, there's nothing. So that's probably also why he's able to, like, you know, he was able to just keep going like that. And I do those sequels too, but
and then I was gonna say
also, and then also I would say, and then he also is. I mean, his wife like produced the, you know, the X-Men franchise, and he produced he produced the first one and X-Men Origins. So I mean, like, you know, so, and he also produced Any Given Sunday, Oliver Stone movie. I was like, wow, he did that too. I was like, I mean, he was involved in a lot of big movies.
Like I said, his fingerprints are all over the place, whether as a producer or as a director. And another thing that I will comment on that, and knowing more about him is you know, learning that he was, you know, when he started his career, he wasn't even planning on being a director. Like he was
an actor first.
He was an actor first. So, you know, it's always fascinating with many filmmakers that are also that have that skill of being an actor as well. You know, you find that in terms of their, and it's not to say that it has to be this way, but I just find that it makes you more well-rounded as a filmmaker, is being able to, you know, interact and relate to, you know, your cast. You know, you have that element there because you know what it takes and what it feels like and what is going on with an actor and with your ensemble that you're working with, that you're directing, if you have that background, you know, as an actor. Because a lot of times, you know, if with filmmakers, because you're focusing on the overall picture, you know, you may be focusing a lot on like the technical aspects, and I feel like it adds.
It comes through if you're not good with actors.
Like it adds a lot. I feel like, and like I said, it
comes through if you're not good with actors. If you're not good at directing actors.
There are directors out there that, you know, perhaps do not have that acting background, and they're still, you know, awesome, terrific directors. However, like I said, I will say that having, you know, working with directors that, you know, have been actors and you know, have been there and done that, so to speak, is that there is a certain rapport, like an instant rapport that can be developed there when there you have a director that has done, you know, has had experience acting. So but yeah, like I said, unfortunate thing to have him pass this week, but as I said, he has an incredible body of work, and
16 Blocks was his last movie. That was a good one too.
He has inspired, you know, so many other artists that, you know, we are still enjoying today their work. So that legacy is continuing, and the inspiration that he has provided with others who are continuing in the field of directing, and those that he has worked with that are still, you know, going strong with their respective careers. So, but yes, any final.
And lastly, I would say also, I read an article too, because a lot of the actors were coming out saying how wonderful he was.
Right.
I read an article in Variety, I think it was Variety or Deadline, one of them, but they're saying, I think it was the actor from the Goonies, what's his name? The guy who played Chunk, what was his name? Chunk or something?
Yeah, you talking about, I know who you're talking about. I
forgot what his real name, but anyway, there was an article talking about how he said that he got out of acting and he had like a dry spell or whatever, or, you know, he wasn't really getting work. And then he went to law school to be like an entertainment lawyer. And they said, well, he said, this is what it says in the article. He said that Richard Donner like paid for his college. I was like, what? That's crazy. Like, that's unheard of. I mean, you know, and that's obviously what, you know, something that happened to that guy. But when you hear stories like that, like that's pretty amazing too. Like I mean, you never know what people do behind the scenes, just helping out, just because they want to help out. But I mean, that's really amazing if he did that too. So big up to Richard Donner. He'll be missed. I mean, he definitely, and a lot of people can learn from what he did. I mean, because he was pretty versatile too. You got to remember, there's some directors aren't that versatile. I mean, like I said, if you did a horror film, superhero movie, action, comedy, you know, like a suspense, you know,
and it's so easy. I was gonna say, and that's
kid movie.
Yeah,
and he produced the Free Willy movies too. I think he produced the Free Willy.
But I'm saying that's a great point you bring up, because, you know, in speaking with whether it's directors or actors or writers that we've had here in the show, You know, it's so easy to allow Hollywood to
Pigeonhole
kind
you.
of
Yeah.
corner you into a niche and say, okay, you do this well, so we're going to keep, you know, giving you this work. Like we're going to keep asking you to direct these types of projects, or if we've seen that you know do well with this type of role, we're going to keep giving you these roles. Like it's very easy to allow Hollywood to have that influence in, you know, your career, and based on, you know, conversations that I've had with folks on the show. And so like it's great to have someone who was, like you said, very versatile and allowed themselves to do a bunch of different things, and was, you know, for all intents and purposes, you know, knocked it out of the park under, you know, under various types of stories. So
Yeah.
um, awesome. Like I said, icon. So moving on, I know we were talking a little bit about Warner Brothers a little earlier. There was a story that made the rounds this week regarding Warner Media, and that's the fact that they are doing some initiatives to kind of encourage the inclusion of or to
Executives or
yeah
people move up
to
the
deal
ranks.
with, you know, the idea of the issue of diversity and ensuring that we have minorities in those roles. So let me pull up the story. So, as I said, story regarding Warner Media, and they're doing two programs apparently. So, one program, as you can see in the title, there is going to be known as Warner Media Fellows. So, Warner Media Fellows is going to be a 6-month program that is open by invitation to all senior vice presidents and above who identify as Asian, Latino, Black, or multicultural. And they also have another program that they're doing as well that deals with the advance. It's going to be an advancement and executive coaching program for Black, Latino, and Indigenous execs at the manager to director level. So, as I said, they're going to be doing these two initiatives to help people of color to move up is executive ranks. So you hear about these two programs and these two pushes, so to speak, to really encourage the idea of inclusion, of diversity, and you know, what are your thoughts on that? You know, I think it's awesome that because we see so few people that are at that executive level that are people of color. So for me, you know, it's good to see, but you know, perhaps you have different thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, it's about time. I mean, we'll see. We'll see what happens, and where these younger executives actually move up, and do they get those opportunities? And I'm glad. I hope all the studios and all these and the streaming companies do the same thing and integrate their highest ranking people who can actually green light movies, TV shows, you know, reality programs, document any type of content, and actually have some sort of green light power, because that's what we need. So, you know, I always go back to that. I think we talked about this before, that example with Judas and the Black Messiah. You know, you had the producer, you had the director, the guy who directed one of the biggest movies ever on the producing team, and they went around to all the studios and they couldn't get it done until they went to Warner Brothers. And there was an executive who wanted to make a movie about the Black Panther story of Fred Hampton. Who knows if Warner Brothers would have done it if that executive didn't, you know, push for it. But the person was, you know, African American, and I mean, it shows. I mean, it's so sad that that's what it takes, even when you have the established people, you know, trying to get projects made. But this is where it starts. I mean, you need to have people go up the ranks, get to that point where they have green light power, and then they'll be able to understand more of these projects that come across their table that are about stories that maybe people don't, if you don't come from that community, or if you don't know a lot of people from these different communities to understand these stories and why people would want to see them and why they're important. that's why I think it's important. And I'm glad it's just focusing on executives. And it seems like when I was reading the articles, they were talking about senior, I think it was like senior vice VPs, trying to groom them to move up. And they have like, they had people, execs from different companies to network with. I think like Morgan Stanley and some other companies. So that's pretty good. Because that's the thing, you need to have leadership, people who are already in these leadership roles, mentoring these execs and letting them know what it takes to, to run a company. Because the thing is, it's like what they have to focus on is, once you become like if you become a CEO or CFO or just a high development executive, you have to manage that slate or manage the projects and make sure you're budgeting stuff correctly and you're greenlighting the right projects. And also like you're looking at everything and you're seeing the value there. And there's so much money that's being left on the table because, a lot of these stories aren't being made, and now they're finally getting made. But I mean, this is how they're getting how people are getting these deals, and how these projects are getting greenlit, because it's either an executive saying, "Hey, let's make this movie. I can see the vision, I can see why it's important, and we should do it," or you have other just filmmakers giving other filmmakers opportunities. And I mean, that I'll give you another good example. Remember, like, that's why Ryan Coogler was like the hero, man. Like, remember we talked to Stephen Capel Jr. Remember, and I mean, I talked to him also, when we were at that Fight Night event. He pretty much put him on to direct Creed 2. I mean, that's at a filmmaker level, but I mean, who knows if Ryan Coogler was in that position, would Steve Capel Jr. gotten that opportunity?
And I was going to say, to speak further,
that's what you got to do sometimes.
To speak further on that, I mean, to that point is it starts at the top, right? So like, in order to see the decisions, to see the impact of decisions being made, we need to have, folks that represent that at those levels. So, we've had it on the show before where, and I mean, it's been commented on even in award shows of, the lack of nominees that are, people of color, that, that there's not a great deal of diversity in many of the award shows in terms of, recognizing their work. So like, you have to, in order to see that change, like there needs to be a change made from the top on down. So, and those opportunities to be provided, so that way you can see the trickling of those decisions, making their way to those levels. So absolutely. But yeah, it's great to see again, nothing is perfect, obviously. And I can just, only thing I can do is, right now is applaud the fact that the effort is being made, to take it, to have it go in that direction. But still, it will still be interesting to see, how it continues to
the results.
Exactly.
Honestly, that's all I'm really cared about. I mean, I think it's great too.
At the end of the day,
we need to, what we need to do is follow up on some of these and be like, oh, cool. So these people are now, because that's really what it is. Because sometimes, I mean, let's be real. Some of these programs, I've talked to some people who have been involved in some of them, and some of them are good. Like, I know people who have, at least for the directing programs. I don't know about this executive one, so it's probably, we still got to see what happens. But some of these programs, they also do for, they kind of feel like, I think some of these companies, they feel like they're forced to just do it for publicity or whatever, or they want to look like they're doing something, which is good at first, but we really got to see the results. Like, if the trend is continuing in the right direction, I mean, you see there's a lot of African-American inspired content with the filmmakers and writers, producers, and that's great. They're getting, on the Hispanic, the Latinx, or Latino end, that's a little bit harder. It's slowly getting there. I mean, and in the Asian community, we're seeing some more. I mean, that's still slow too. But I mean, it's not just Latinos. I mean, also there's, how about Middle Eastern stories or Indian? I mean, just because India has Bollywood, there's not people who don't want, who don't want to make those types of stories.
Again,
they want to make,
at the end of the day,
exactly.
Like,
so there's a lot.
We need to have stories being told, so
and even like disabled people too. When people say minorities, disabled people, there's a lot of people who just don't, they don't get their story. So
again, at the end of the day, having stories where, people are able to see themselves, more stories like that where everyone is able to see themselves in the stories that they are seeing that are commonplace. So
it's a good start.
So with that being said, we'll close it off there. Before we head off, guys, I did want to get into, as always, getting into the announcement for Emerald Variants. But before I do that, Jerome, can you tell folks where they can find you?
Yeah, definitely, you can find me at JW Bourgeois 21 on Twitter. There's JW Bourgeois on Instagram, and definitely subscribe, follow us on, Facebook and Twitter at Move and Shake UNLTD, on Instagram, Movers Shakers Unlimited. And also, if you guys are super fans and you want to just support us for the content that we're creating, you can go on patreon.com, Movers Shakers Unlimited. And thanks for watching, and we'll definitely see you next week. And I know Brandon's got some more announcements. And also,
yes.
the Comic-Con one too. I'll be on one of those, so you'll see me.
For sure.
Get my perspective.
Sure. For sure. But yeah, as I said, every single week that we have on This Week in Review, I like to do an announcement of the upcoming show for Emerald Variants and who we will have as our guest hosts. As you know, we have our Loki Our Loki series, Emerald Variants, happen every Sunday. It happens 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Sundays, 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And I am pulled up here. I'm excited to announce that we do have some cool guests joining us for tomorrow. We have two filmmakers, as a matter of fact. So we have Casimir Novskowski. So let me put him up. He is the writer and director of the film known as Outside Story. It was currently showing at the Tribeca Film Festival. Accomplished, director in his own right, and is well on his way. Super proud of Buddy there, and also like I said, I am a huge horror buff. And enjoy my horror movies. Another good friend, Jeffrey Reddit. So let me put him up as well. Jeffrey Reddit is the creator of Final Destination, the Final Destination franchise. So we will have Jeffrey Reddit as well as Casimir Novskowski tomorrow as our guest hosts. So let me put both of them up here. But yeah, we will have both of them up as guest hosts tomorrow. So that's 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, for our episode of Emerald Variants, the Loki series chat. So make sure that you are there for that. It should be a fun one. But with that being said, I am your host, Brandon Troy, host and co-creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. You can find me at Brandon Troy, and put it up here real quick. Brandon Troy ENT on Twitter, which you can find right there, and also on Instagram at Brandon Troy _ENT. But with that being said, guys, again, just as Jerome was saying, you can also find us on Move and Shake UNLTD on Twitter, Movers Shakers Unlimited on Instagram. Other than that, thank you guys so much for watching. Be safe out there, guys, and see you soon.